In their time as Prime Minister, one single person dissolved state governments 50 times. Not once, not 5 times, 50 times. Democratically elected governments gone because they were politically inconvenient. That Prime Minister was not Narendra Modi. It was Indira Gandhi of the Indian National Congress. The same party that stands in front of you today and tells you that the BJP is murdering Indian democracy. Sit with that for a second. And before anything else, this is not a pro-BJP video. I'm not here to defend Modi. The BJP's record on democratic institutions, press freedom, and electoral process will get its own video. And that list is genuinely long. What this video is about is this. Congress, and particularly Rahul Gandhi, has made the murder of democracy the central argument of their entire political identity right now. That's a big claim. So let's hold them to it. Let's look at the Congress's own record on the exact things that they are right now accusing the BJP of doing. 5 things. Let's go. Article 356 of the Constitution gives the central government the power to dismiss a state government when, in the precedent's assessment, constitutional machinery has broken down. Emergency power. This should be rare, should be a last resort. But under Indira Gandhi, it became a scheduling tool. Across both her tenures, 1966 to 77, and again from 1980 to 1984, her government imposed precedents rule roughly 50 times. Of the 126 total times Article 356 has been used since independence, 88 were under Congress-led governments. That figure comes from RTI data reported in the Hindustan Times. 88 out of 126. These weren't constitutional emergencies. Many of them were states where opposition parties had won, or where a rival faction inside Congress had gained ground, or where Indira Gandhi simply wanted a different outcome. The Supreme Court eventually had to step in through the 1994 Bomai judgment, specifically because the abuse had become so systematic that the court had to draw a line. Now, when Modi's government uses federal machinery against opposition-run states, Congress is absolutely right to call it out. But the template they're accusing him of following, they didn't just use it, they built it. They ran it for decades, and they got really, really good at it. June 25, 1975. Indira Gandhi declares a national emergency.
The President has declared a state of emergency.
Here's what happened. Fundamental rights were suspended. Press censorship went into effect overnight. Electricity was literally cut to newspaper offices in Delhi, so nothing could go to print. Thousands of political opponents were jailed without trial, including people from within her own party who disagreed with her. Judges who seemed unfriendly to the government were transferred. The constitution was amended specifically to make her 1971 election legally unchallengeable. For 21 months, India was not a democracy. By every functional definition, it was authoritarian rule. And the Congress party ran it. Here's the specific detail that stays with me. When the papers came back online, the Indian Express and the Statesman left their editorial columns blank, white space where editorial opinion should have been, as a silent protest against the censorship. The Times of India went further and published what was effectually an obituary for Indian democracy. That's how bad things were. Now, in 2024, Rahul Gandhi stands at rallies and says that the BJP is trying to silence the press. And he has legitimate points to make. But the party he leads is the same party that physically shut down every major newspaper in this country for nearly 2 years. That's not whataboutery. That's just the history. And if you're going to run on moral authority, history is fair game. The media relationship gets more subtle after the emergency, but it doesn't get clean. In the years immediately before Modi, Delhi's press circles operated on a system that everyone understood, but nobody quite said out loud. Access to the Gandhi family was currency. Interviews, exclusives, background briefings, it all flowed through one channel. And that channel was managed very carefully. Journalists and editors who were seen as sympathetic found doors open. Invitations, access to ministers, quotes that kept their publications relevant. Journalists who asked the wrong questions or whose publications took inconvenient positions found that access just disappeared. No phone call, no confrontation, just silence. No scoops, no quotes, and no dinners. Vinod Mehta, longtime editor of Outlook, wrote about this in his memoir. The culture of self-censorship that governed how Delhi's press navigated Congress power. The rules were never stated. They didn't need to be. Rahul Singh described the same thing in her book Darbar, how proximity to Rajiv Gandhi's inner circle worked, and how completely it could be withdrawn. Is this the same as raiding news offices? No. Is it the same as arresting journalists under sedition provisions? No. But the principle that the press should be managed rather than free, that coverage is something to be rewarded or withdrawn, that principle didn't originate with the BJP. It was standard operating procedure under Congress for decades. Here's something Rahul Gandhi's own supporters will tell you in private. He doesn't meet ground-level workers. He's surrounded by a small group of advisors, people who've been with him for years, who've never won an election themselves, who largely tell him what he wants to hear. Workers in Uttar Pradesh, in Madhya Pradesh, in states where Congress has been wiped out over the last decade, all say the same thing. There's no way to reach this man. In fact, there's a wall. Now, here's what's interesting. His father was said to have exactly the same problem. Rajiv Gandhi came to power in 1984 with 404 seats, the largest majority in Indian parliamentary history. He had a genuine mandate, a real chance to reshape the country. But he burned enormous parts of it by governing through a small circle of loyalists. Sam Pitroda on technology, a handful of trusted names on everything else. State-level leaders who might have challenged him were kept at arm's length. Congress workers on the ground felt shut out. By 1989, that majority of 404 was gone. The pattern isn't accidental, it's structural. When a party's identity is built around a single family, you don't build institutions, you build courts. And courts have courtiers. And courtiers don't tell you when things are going wrong, simply because they will no longer be courtiers. Congress accuses the BJP of running a one-man show. They're not wrong, but they have been living with that same disease for 60 years. They just prefer not to connect those dots. Now here's the thing nobody quite says directly. Congress's entire comeback strategy rests on one argument. We are the defenders of the Constitution. We believe in institutions. We believe in democracy. The BJP is tearing down what we built. And parts of that critique of the BJP are legitimate. And I'll get to all of it in another video. But here's what the Congress is asking you to do when they make that argument. They're asking you to forget that they suspended the Constitution in 1975. They're asking you to forget that Congress-led governments dismissed elected state governments 50 times. They're asking you to forget that for decades, their relationship with the press was transactional by design. They're asking you to forget that governing through a centralized inner circle, shutting out everyone else, the thing they now treat as Modi's great sin, is something their own party invented and perfected. They're not the same as the BJP in every way. That's not what I'm saying. But the claim to moral high ground on democracy requires a very short memory. You don't have to have a short memory. As we come to the end of this video, here's what I'd like you to sit with. The next time any party stands in front of you and says, "We are the defenders of democracy," your first question shouldn't be, "Do I agree with them?" Your first question should be, what does their own track record look like? That's not cynicism, but that's just how accountability works. If that's the kind of political conversation you think is worth having, please subscribe to this channel and let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you.
सत्ता का खेल तो चलेगा, सरकारें आएंगी जाएंगी, पार्टियां बनेगी बिगड़ेंगी, मगर ये देश रहना चाहिए, इस देश का लोकतंत्र अमर रहना चाहिए।